This is the Workplace Ninja podcast, coming to you live from our summit in Baden with highlights, insights, and interviews.
So welcome back at a new recording, a new interview, new talk with people on the table. And still, in the last few recordings, I had Harjit with me, but Harjit disappeared somewhat. But we're talking about security and securing our workplace, having testing on that. And I have invited a few other people. Alex.
Hello, hello.
You're co-hosting me a little bit.
I'm trying my best.
Yeah. Well, we will manage that.
Yeah.
And on the other side, we have the green team. Yeah, we talk already about the blue team and the red team, what we normally do. But now it's the yellow team and against the green team.
So new terms.
Yeah.
We are not in a competing situation, so that's the reason.
Now we're helping each other. But the green team, who do I have? Sergey, who are you? What are you doing?
Here, talking.
Yeah. But not only talking, you're working probably also.
My name is Sergey. I work in security as a consultant, and I really prefer offensive security. That's one of my passion, to find out vulnerabilities, find out misconfigurations, and find a way to exploit them. Sometimes I also make some researches and submit them to vendors that they should fix it.
Yeah, you try to help them in another way than other people probably do. On the other side, Michael, you're back.
Yes.
We had a conversation in the past already.
We did.
And but what are you doing? You're from Belgium?
Yes, I am. Running a consultancy company, but more on the blue side of things, where we try to keep people like Sergey out of our environments. Helping customers to try and be as secure as possible.
Yeah, and that's the reason why we have you on the table. One from the red side and one from the blue team, the blue side. And Alex, is there something to tell that can be tell from your side?
I'm trying to do my best as a co-host, and besides that, I'm the security lead for the conference. I had the pleasure to figure out all of these beautiful talks and build a proper agenda. And I'm super excited and happy how the whole conference is running, and to see all the people, and it really feels good.
Yeah. To start on the blue side, you're running in this morning. You're a little late for the conference, but
just a little.
Yeah, but you're here. The talk that you will have this afternoon.
Mm-hmm.
What is that about?
So this afternoon I'll be talking about Privileged Access Workstations for and through the cloud, mainly because I see that Privileged Access Workstations in general aren't used as much as they should be, and especially for the cloud. People think, oh, cloud doesn't need it. So goal is to make people aware of, yes, you still need it, why, and then talk also about how can you build or try to build a Privileged Access Workstation.
Is that easy? I know I have implemented it already, but is it easy to realize that, or are there issues that people facing when realizing such sort of thing?
Oh, you will face lots of issues, like so many. The theory behind a Privileged Access Workstation is easy, right? The reality, however, is there is much more than just the device, right? It's an entire set of things that you have to worry about. And sooner or later you will run into issues, whether it's an application that you need to run, but application control gives you a hard time just because of the feature, or because of in the cloudy world everything is internet connected, and internet is the big bad wolf. Yep. So you want to keep it out as much as possible. So there's we can't solve everything, right? So a Privileged Access Workstation, for better and worse, is not the solution to end all problems. It is part of the solution, and I think people should realize that. And the message is very simple. Don't let perfect get in the way of progress. Right? Do something. I'd rather have you use a half-baked Privileged Access Workstation than just use your regular workstation on a daily basis to admin tasks.
How is that for you, Alex, in the companies in Germany, for example, but also in other countries? Are they using these kind of things a lot, or is it still a little preliminary that they need to do that.
I am 100% sure that they could use it more. I mean, that's something I think we all agree on. And I'm super curious to hear, Michael, the approach. I mean, with all of these new, I'm not sure if I know the correct name, but Microsoft desktops, Microsoft like the Windows virtual desktops. I have seen a couple of times where people were using these as privileged access workstations. Is that something that you would call a good approach?
Well, better than no approach. So one of the elements, and I'm probably taking away the thunder of my session this afternoon, is the clean source principle, right? Whatever you manage the system, do it from a clean source. So if you have a well-managed virtual desktop through which you manage your infrastructure, great.
Right.
But how are you going to connect to that virtual desktop, right? Let's imagine that you use your daily computer and that one's compromised. Then, in theory, all the keystrokes you do on the machine are being recorded by someone else who's looking at that, and your passwords that you're using to manage the infrastructure through that secure host are then potentially captured, or someone could take over your device and then jump onto the other virtual desktop. Again, really depends on the types of technologies that you use. So is that great? Well, sure, it's much better than nothing. Is it the best solution? Probably not.
Yeah.
So it kind of really depends on use cases, types of systems, how you interact, how it is secured, and so forth and so on.
Right.
And if we look at the other side, on the red team side, how hard is it to access organizations that are using Privileged Access Workstation, for example, for admin tasks?
Much harder. Yeah, of course, it's not impossible, but you don't forget that most, quite often when we hear about like cyber attacks, we hear about like some professional hackers that may work for nation states, but you forget that we have so many script kiddies.
Right.
And for them, Privileged Access Workstation is something that it's just impossible to bypass, almost impossible to compromise.
Yeah.
Of course, when you deal with professional that work for a nation state or some have commercial interest, they have more skills, they have higher skills. So now if they have motivation as well, they can bypass some protection one by one. But for like regular, script kiddies that may read some books and start the phishing campaign, that's something that they will not be able to bypass, and they will not be able to collect anything from those machines.
Yeah.
On the other hand, you had also a session, or will that be?
I have two.
I have two.
One I had already.
And what was that about?
PowerShell, AMSI, MSI, and CLM. So what is that? Behind the scenes, and how to bypass, of course.
Yeah, it was a crazy session. I mean, there were many people again in the room that I think for the very first time went down on that depth level, right? So you could see like the surprise in many people's face. Although in many cases they use it in a way, right? They are familiar with the concept, but really on how to exploit that, I think again opened eyes, right? And I think what I really like about your sessions though is that you not only try to make some shiny, fancy things to exploit things, but you also educate people in how to protect them, and you kind of think around the corner. And I think that's also with coming back to the Privileged Access Workstation approach. What I've seen lately, though, and I think this is, smart people like Sergey, they always try to, if we lock down things like the workstation, they always try to find their ways around the concept. And what these people do then is, and really we had the case that is just a couple of days ago, where not the Privileged Access Workstation in its running state was hacked, but the template with which it was spawned. Like they got into the template, and then every time they had non-persistent Privileged Access Workstations, every time they kind of rebuilt the instance or the session for the admin, every time the hackers backdoor was reestablished. And this is what we also need, conferences like the ones that we are at, but also the conversations in the community to understand and probably even open eyes besides the limits that we are facing due to our work and the workload that we're seeing day by day.
Yeah, definitely. And you travel a lot. You're at many events. So is it still needed to inform people, maybe not like us, but people that are attending these kind of conferences, what can happen, even if they are using a privileged access workstation, for example, but that they can be hacked in certain way. Is that still needed, or is the awareness raising and raising? What are your opinion on that?
I can see that the demand has become higher and higher and higher. So I work in security for years,
Right.
and I remember before WannaCry, you remember that campaign?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have so much work.
Yeah.
And every year, like the number of tasks, number of customers just increased. And I see also how conferences are transforming. Like I also speak at a conference about endpoint management, and I can see every year, year by year, they have more and more security sessions and more people involved into more attendees visit those sessions.
Yeah, I think maybe just to point to that, because I'm just coming from Sami's session. He was talking about the future of cybersecurity. Really, I really recommend people to attend this talk whenever they have the chance to see Sami. But what he was saying is that not only the demand for security, proper security is raising. Also, I mean, how the hacking industry is professionalizing, right? So you were mentioning script kiddies earlier and said, people forget that there are still some script kiddies. But the thing is, also let's say credential harvesting, for example, is a massive business that is out there, and there's like super professional teams that just for the sake of getting these credentials, that's the only purpose that they're following, and then they're going to sell them to as many people as they want them, right? And this is I think also why the conversation around security is so important to have, right?
But what about, and maybe you can elaborate, both can elaborate a little bit on that. What about Microsoft, for example, is delivering PKI as a service. They are delivering desktop as a service. So the complete infrastructure, the complete security, what they do is on the back end. New guys in town, students that came up and so on, does not have the knowledge, in most cases, about the things that we have done in the past, a data center, setting up a server. So if there is, from a security perspective, but also from a support perspective, if you need to troubleshoot, where we know, because we have seen that already in the past, we know what could happen and can troubleshoot. What about the new guys, the script kiddies? What is the knowledge? Is there a lack of knowledge with these kind of people?
So talking about the Blueteam side of things, absolutely. So we're seeing a massive change, right? Especially when it comes down to older technology. I don't want to say older, but let's call them legacy, just to use Microsoft's naming for it as well. They lack the knowledge of legacy technologies. Back in the days, 20 years ago, everyone knew Active Directory to some extent, and they were well aware of how to work with it. And then proficiency grew and grew and grew, and people were really good at managing and kind of securing, even though it was still crappy, but securing Active Directory. And then somewhere 2018, we were at the peak of probably knowledge, and it went downhill from there. Whereas everyone that now gets into the professional market, they're like, ooh, cloud, shiny, cool, new features, let's go for this, right? Marketing hype stuff.
It's only a check mark too.
It is in theory just a check mark, but we still have 99.9% of our customers running that legacy technology, and they have no clue on how to secure that, giving red teamers even a better chance of pivoting in the environment. So the lack of knowledge and the growing lack thereof is becoming a problem. Plus, it also changes how we gather and have knowledge.
Exactly.
The knowledge that most have of the cloud is, well, I know there is a checkbox, but what does that do? Why do we do that? People don't know. They look at the marketing talk because that's all what we're getting these days. So yes, this is somewhat of a me complaining about the lack of deep technical information that vendors dissipate. People just don't know or can get that information anymore. Yeah. And that is going to hurt us even more in the future. Absolutely.
And that's why we need people like Sergey and talk about what happens behind the scenes. What are your thoughts about the lack of knowledge? Is that on the red team side? Is that the same?
I don't think so. Because it's different compared to 20 years ago. Because 20 years ago, to like compromise something, you had to develop your own tool.
Yeah.
And you had to know how it works. You had to know how operating system works, how everything works. Now you can just download the tool and run it right away. That's what we are observing for the last around 10 years. But what makes red teamers nowadays a bit, so the motivation to them, because like last year's Microsoft and other vendors, they invest more into security. And so red teamers, if they want to survive, attackers, red teamers, whatever, they need to learn more and more and more. So
Yeah.
I would say they try to catch up with that. It's still it's still a drop in knowledge compared to like old times when they had to know really internals of the operating system. But last year's red teamers and attackers become smarter because they have to, because vendors invest more in security.
I wouldn't say that it is a drop of knowledge, because really, I mean, the thing is, I totally support what you were saying, and also, I mean, let me point out that you know, also troubleshooting has changed a lot, right? We're not in event logs anymore. We're not, you know, trying to understand, you know, where, like, the technology is just there. Like the service that we want, it is just there. It is spawning, and we don't need to care. And if it doesn't do what it should, we just create it again and hope that it works in that way. But what has changed is the way on how we use technology, right? So back in the days, we installed everything. We were responsible for how the service is built, how everything has been set up. Now moving everything more to SaaS and PaaS, this is a different approach. And it will change again with the technology of AI, right? So I for example, what you were saying is that people don't have proper knowledge about Active Directory anymore. I can support that statement with the point that the people that I have in the team, we just recently did a research on research is maybe a word that is too big, but we recently checked how do our SOC analysts use ChatGPT, you know, the most. And the thing is, the funny was, they use it to understand command line calls, because they don't know what a Active Directory command line call is, what it does anymore. And they just put it in ChatGPT and said, hey, what does this command line do? Command line call do, right? Yep. So and this is what we, I think, have to see as well.
Yep. So sorry to interrupt there. I do agree that, you know, it is changing.
Yeah.
But whilst it is changing, it is also kind of dissipating or flattening the level of knowledge that we have. Mm-hmm. Going back more than 10 years now. Wow. I did my master's at Microsoft when Office 365 was just kicking off really big, and we got to know some insights into, you know, how that service is built, what directories exist, how they are interconnected, how identities flow, how these solutions are built. Now, because of that legacy, whenever we are in an incident response mode where we see something happening, we know, okay, well, probably this or that could happen. If you don't have that level of depth, then you're just looking at it and be like, well, I don't know. That's Microsoft's problem to take care of. And you may actually be going in the wrong direction in order to figure out what's happening. Yeah. So I'm not saying that people should know how to troubleshoot the logs and everything else, because we don't care about the servers anymore. But at the very least, we need to be better at understanding how everything fits together. And I think that's the biggest challenge, because and I don't mean that in a bad way, but an attacker, they can have their specialization and, you know, be really good at that one thing and be lucky with that. Because again, they need to be lucky once, right? In order to get in. Once they're in, then they can pivot from there.
Yep.
Most blue teamers, they have to have a breadth of knowledge of everything they're running in the environment, which at the end of the day is just an almost insurmountable task. So I understand why it's happening. Doesn't mean it's good that it's happening. And I think that AI will help. But it just, we're facing an uphill battle either way.
Yeah, from a learning perspective, AI will definitely help. But does it also help on the other side to get all the knowledge together? Will it help to get faster? To get faster in an organization, or if maybe not for you, but if I want to start on a red team side, does it also help on that side?
Red teamers use also new technologies. So they use cloud services also. They use new services like AI. They use services like hosting something in the cloud rather than deploy infrastructure on their environment. So yes, they also try to use new technology. They use new technology even faster than Defenders.
Yeah, than others. You have another session later on. What will that be?
So that session about config manager and how infrastructure can be compromised if you have config manager installed.
So config manager is not safe.
I didn't tell that. But
that's my statement.
what we see about config manager is that it was installed many years ago when company didn't really care about security. Didn't care that much compared to nowadays. And so they have many checkboxes, they have many configurations, and they have no idea why do they have it. And so I saw sometimes during the session, attendees start to fix their environment remotely. And so after the session, people came to me and say, look, we have all that stuff that you showed us, and we fixed it during the session. Like, thank you.
But didn't you tell them that they have a bingo then?
Yeah.
So they have no idea what it was. They have no idea why they configured that. So it's just some configuration they had.
We know, Mike, in the past we have implemented SCCM a lot at customers. Are there still that kind of environments? Yeah, people are configuring that already in a session, but do we see that in the landscape that we manage also?
If not, we wouldn't have jobs today, right?
Thank you, config manager.
No, I mean, true. It's not just config manager, right? It's Exchange, Active Directory, config manager. Pretty much any application that you could install back in the days. If you haven't given it any love, or you've been keeping up with, new recommendations or best practices or whatever you want to call it these days, you're bound to be in trouble. One of the elements I'm actually talking about is not necessarily SCCM, but the management infrastructure, whether it's case, SCCM, Intune, whatever it is, and privileged access workstations, or tier 0, if you have any tiering at all. There is a conflict, right? Because if you don't treat it in the same manner as your most critical and precious assets, compromise of the management infrastructure may mean, game over. Which obviously you don't want to. So there's benefits and downsides.
It's not only config manager. If you have an application installed 10 years ago, for example, definitely you need to look at it. If you have maintained it in the last few weeks, a few years, basically.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you. Or do we have another thing to bring up, Alex? You have to go probably, but
no, I was just checking. No, I think. Is like with the PAW concept, right? So we use technology in a way to get a problem solved, but we haven't thought about how can it be abused to attack our own environment. Yeah.
Wholeheartedly agree with.
So we need to take care of our environment before Sergey come in.
Preferably, yes.
You want me to lose the job?
They all
no. We make it a little bit harder for you, so you have to make extra energy to it.
I'll have more fun.
But do you? I tell you this though. Before all of these AI things that spawned up, I would have said that penetration testing is some sort of, or even red teaming is some sort of dying over the years because the EDR protection things, it's fair to say that they at least made your job harder, right, to get in. And if you have a proper workstation that has EDR capabilities and is some sort of hardened, it is not so easy anymore to, like you were saying, with the own tools and everything, to compromise. But since AI is there and we see all of these new attack vectors, like for example, I was just lately talking about Poison GPT or Worm GPT. Like Poison GPT is, I think, a pretty impressive example because it is, built as an AI to just, maybe just it's already quite big, but to spread disinformation against the organization, right? I was telling the other day, I think from all organizations that I have met in the last 10 years, I don't know a single organization that has a risk assessment or even a concept of how they would treat a misinformation or disinformation campaign against their environment. And this also is becoming cybersecurity, right? And I mean, this is changing the world on how we should, get prepared and everything. That's super scary and exciting at the same time.
It's not only vulnerabilities, the cybersecurity world, and also from a hacker's perspective, is going broader and broader. That's the case.
So, I would argue, well, sure, all these aspects are all these aspects are definitely part of the business that we're in.
Mm-hmm.
Yet, we can't, or we, and when I say we, as customers and blue teamers, we're really bad at closing the front door.
Yeah.
So when I was preparing for the session for tomorrow, at first I thought, I'm going to do some really cool stuff, advanced malware and bypassing EDR and stuff. And then I figured, I'm not, because I've taken a look at all the cases we've had on our SOC in the past year. 90-odd-something% is phishing, privilege escalation, using passwords that are...
Not having multi-factor, for example.
The basic stuff, like the easy things. And that just gets to me, right? So a lot of us, obviously we're in technology, we like to have fun, right? You mentioned it earlier, make it challenging, let's have fun. Yep. But in reality, that gets me 5% of my business. 80-90% of my business is... So let's turn on MFA. Let's do the basic stuff right. Let's make sure that your house is secured. That you lock the doors when you have to lock. Patch your system.
Yes,
exactly. Well, I mean, we laugh about the things because it's so obvious. Yet, every single customer that you walk into, you're like, okay, so did you do a risk assessment? If step one, no. Okay, great. So you have no clue what you're dealing with. You have no clue what you have in your environment. How on earth are you even going to keep yourself safe if you don't know what you have, right? I'm sure you can, do some cool stuff like EDR and IPS and whatever it is, but that doesn't mean anything if you don't do the other stuff, right? And people like Sergey are very smart at finding the stuff that you don't do very easily. So.
The fun part of the job was Michael talking about. This is the last question. The fun part where Michael is talking about, is that for you also 5% or is that a lot more? Because of companies where you penetration do a penetration test or red teaming or whatever, is that more or less still the basic stuff or is it more or less advanced? In general.
So in general, pretty much the same. Of course, when you are in a new environment, there are still some nuances. So this one is network configured in a different manner. But at the end of the day, after you untangle all of this, you find those basics. Yeah. So it may be different in the process because it's still like, let's imagine you are just a system administrator and you see the network for the first time. So I'm not talking about attackers. You're the system administrator. You don't know this network. You need to figure it out. What is where? Which servers are installed? Where do we have firewalls and so on? So attackers need to do the same. Plus, they must be gentle. They don't want to be detected. So for them, it takes time to understand. And every network is unique. But at the end of the day, yes, we may find pretty much the same misconfigurations and vulnerabilities.
So if you have that as a customer, as an end user or a system admin, now please be invited that we can help you, these guys, but also other people doing red teaming or helping customers on the blue team side. So if you don't know, invite all the people from the red team, from the blue team to assess your environment. That's basically the thing that we can...
From green team and from yellow team.
Yeah, it's a purple.
So if you mix yellow and green, you get brown. So I'd
will
rather
be
have
brown.
purple. I'd rather have purple team than brown team.
Let's do purple.
All right, let's keep purple.
Yeah. Thank you guys for being here. And let's meet up later on. And for now, we will do it again later on. Thank you.
Definitely.
Sure.
Cheers. Bye.